to the Live with Brandon Blakney podcast. Here is your host, Brandon Blakney.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Brandon Blakney, a.k.a. Brandon Lee TV. Hope everybody's having a great year so far. Still early, man. I appreciate everybody subscribing, rocking with me. We keep bringing y'all dope guests, and we not letting up this week, man. Got my guy, Coach Frederick Cannon, on this week. Coach, I appreciate you joining me, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
No doubt, no doubt. Love the Shockers jersey, man. I know they doing their thing with the Carolina guys. Jamarius Burton obviously transferred, but they still got Ricky Council down there, Jaden Seymour doing their thing. So I see you represent.
Yeah, I always try to represent my guys, man. They take care of me. So I got a whole closet full of jerseys of all my guys. And normally I'll be traveling and be able to check on my guys. So I always like to make sure I support my guys. So COVID threw a little wrench in those plans, but I still want the boys to know I still checking in on them.
Right. And just picking up off of that, let's dive right into it, because I know that you have personally made a career shift more from coaching and running Team Felton and helping these guys out in that way to kind of doing the recruitment aspect and giving life advice to these guys. So kind of, just explain to us really, what went into that and what your new role is, what's the intent of your business and, what you guys got going on.
Yeah, so I transitioned from Team Felton, being a director of Team Felton after basically almost 12 years to going into Ascension Sports, which is a company I started on my own. Basically, what started happening is Team Felton developed a reputation for getting kids in school. So I always started having kids from all over reaching out, hey, can you help me? And with AAU does a lot of politics, especially with the shoe companies. They particularly don't like you helping a Nike kid if you're Under Armour and so forth, so on. To me, that's always been crazy. I feel like if you can help a kid, you should help a kid. So I originally started Ascension just as an alias, so I could still help kids outside of Team Felton go to school. But I have two little boys now, 6 and 8. And, for me, it was time for me to make that transition because I told my wife and my family I would never put, as much as I love helping other people's kids, there comes a certain time where you have to start, make sure you make time for your own. So with Ascension, it allows me to still have kids like I want to, but I don't have to do all the day-to-day of the travel and the recruiting and all that stuff for Team Felton. We had almost 60 teams at our conclusion. So, it wasn't a small outfit. It took up a lot of time. But like I said, at the end of the day, it was that time. It was starting to be a transition as well. We kind of went through that same thing. When we came in, they kind of pushed some other teams out. And then you got the creation of Team Curry, for Under Armour, it makes sense. And they was going to give us the opportunity to fight for it. But, you kind of know kind of the right on the table. And it made sense. So the timing on my personal side and the timing on the business side, it just made sense. So going into Ascension, it allowed me to pick up and start helping a lot of kids nationwide. It's not just, restricted to Team Felton kids or North Carolina kids. So I help high school kids that haven't received the publicity think they deserved, and try to help, magnify their recruitment. My main specialty, though, is helping these college guys that jump into the transfer portal to kind of expedite that process for them, especially the high major guys. They may not necessarily want to hear from all 300 schools. They may have a handful of schools that they want feedback from, and I get that feedback and get it back to them so they know exactly what's on the table. So it's been really good. COVID's been a blessing in disguise because I've really pushed forward with it. Whereas I may have tried to do AAU at least 1 or 2 more years possibly, but COVID showed me that, it was time to make that transition.
And we will definitely touch on your time with the AAU stuff. I know you're just a wealth of knowledge in that area, man. I was just seeing you around for a while, but I wanted to continue with Ascension. I noticed, I love what you guys are doing on social media, by the way, to promoting these guys and these coaches too, that are looking, especially these young Black coaches that are looking to get looks and, sometimes are overlooked in the game, dealing with the recruitment perspective and also, like you said, that publicity. How important is that to know how to really market yourself if you don't have the people in your corner that are going to do it for you.
But the game has changed a lot. Like the old adage used to be, if you could play, they'll find you. Well, it's
Right.
so many kids now playing. It changed that. It changed the logic of that statement. Back in the early 2000s, even in North Carolina, it was really only like 3 main AAU teams. So if you weren't good enough to make one of those 3, you really didn't even play.
Right.
Now you have, a ton of teams across the country, especially in North Carolina. I think last year we had like 7 shoe sponsored teams, which is crazy because we're all like 2 hours apart. After a while, it's going to kind of, it's going to water down some, and somebody's going to fall between the cracks. And when I started Team Felton, my whole thing was I wanted kids to go to school. I wasn't chasing trophies. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. So I made a concerted effort to go out and build relationships with colleges. And what parents don't realize and kids don't realize now that a lot of times schools will call me and say, Fred, we need a combo guard, X, Y, and Z. Who should we look at? And based off their recommendation, and I'm sure it's not just mine, but certain people they reach out to, and if they have a certain trust in it, then those kids are more apt to get an opportunity than a kid who doesn't have somebody making that same statement for them. And that's kind of what I've really built myself on, and that's, in a nutshell, that's what Ascension is. We put this stamp on certain kids that haven't gotten the, kind of the notoriety that they think they deserve. And then a lot of these schools just don't know about the kids. I mean, if you don't play for a major shoe team, a lot of times there's a lot of kids that can hoop. But I always tell parents, like, the name on the front of the jersey does matter, and the logo on the jersey matters. If a kid has an EYBL and he played at Oak Hill, even if he averaged 1 point a game, he'll still get more scholarship offers than a kid that played on a mom and pop team and played public school.
Doubt.
It's just, it's just how it is right now. Not to say that it's right, but that's a lot of times that's what happens. And to be honest, that's a lot of the reason why college basketball is, to me, suffered. There's been too much dependence on rankings and stuff like that to fill rosters, as opposed to being old school and go out and actually laying eyes and trusting your eyes on a kid. You trusting other people to do it for you. And a lot of these coaches are getting jammed up, not laying on eyes on these kids before they step on campus. So I'm hoping to try to right that ship, and in the process help a lot of kids go to school. And like you said, I definitely work with coaches, and most notably African American coaches, and then young coaches.
Right.
It's hard to get a college coaching job. It's the same politics. If you were GA, it's a little easy to get on staff, but we have well qualified guys who played at a high level, played professionally, and I mean they are breaking their neck to get an opportunity on any level. And to me, it's just
hungry.
It's not right. And the hiring process isn't going through the schools anymore. A lot of it's going through hiring firms or search firms. So that's one of the things I've been doing over the last year is building relationships with search firms. And a lot of them just don't know the young Black assistants. So I try to make sure to put that magnifying glass on those guys, or guys like a Lavelle Moten, who's a successful guy at a low major, low to mid major conference, and just let them know, like, this is a guy that you at least need to bring in and take a look at. I would never just say hire somebody because of their skin color. But I also think you need to go ahead and spread that. You need to spread your search to cover some guys that may not have the magnifying glass on them, but these guys can really coach basketball. So I just try to do my part to make sure these guys are seen too.
Now, I know that you do a lot of traveling, like you said before, and I know you've come in contact with a lot of coaches. For us, I know in the media, it's a demo reel. For players, it's a highlight tape. Like, for these young coaches that are coming out that might not know, how to get some eyes on them, what advice would you share for them to kind of get that resume together or get that portfolio popping?
Well, the biggest advice I give them first is you have to self-market. The same thing I tell the prospective athletes, the game is changing. It's not just whose coaching tree you're a part of and all that. I mean, your likes, your followers, your movement, it means something. You also have to win. Like, you have to be a part of winning, and you can't pigeonhole yourself into just being a recruiter. It's almost, I always tell the coaches, it's almost like being a Black quarterback. You can't just go out there and designate yourself as a scrambling quarterback, because what it automatically insinuates is that you're not smart enough to make reads and be a pocket quarterback. That's not the case. But when you pigeonhole yourself into a certain role, That's how people view you. And for a college coach, I mean, that's as detrimental as it can be to your career. You don't want people doubting your IQ
Right.
or your capability to lead and say, "Oh, he's just only capable of being a recruiter." Like that's an insult in itself to somebody who's really trying to pursue a career in college basketball. Designating somebody as just a recruiter. These guys love basketball. They played at a high level 9 times out of 10. They've been around it their whole life. They understand the game of basketball. So, just putting themselves out there and letting people know that they want to be a head coach. That's the big part. I think a lot of people assume I'm just gonna put my head down and people are gonna see me. You have to shout it out there that I'm looking for a job and I want to be a head coach
Yeah.
one day, and people will start to treat you that way. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's not being arrogant. That's just letting people know what your dreams and ambitions are, and you put the pressure on yourself to achieve that. And once you get it, you just have to succeed once you get your opportunity.
Hey man, that's what I be telling all the youngs if they ask me, man. Closed mouths don't get fed. They never have.
That's right. That's
Coach,
right.
I know, man. Just touch on the recruitment a little bit because I know we were talking about the Jersey and Ricky Council, and there's just so much talent in North Carolina in general in every class, and we see it. I mean, you got guys at Queens College killing it right now, beating D1s. Guys at Greensboro College beating
Mhm.
D1s. We continue to see it. Is it hard to feel sorry for any of these programs that are below 500 in North Carolina? And why is this overthinking happening in your opinion? No, we're happy that these kids are finding their right fit, first of all. So let's put that out there because we don't want to offend nobody. But like a kid like Ricky Council or Jaden
Right.
Seymour that goes to Wichita State, biggest offer, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, was probably like UNCG, the heaviest out of those. How does a kid
Mhm.
like that get out of NC, man? And how also do you think college or high school coaches and AAU coaches need to work together more to kind of make this communication thing one line?
Yeah, touching on the high school and AAU coaches, man, it makes the process so much more easier. It makes the process smoother for the kid and the parents if they have two valuable resources. I think it's easy for outsiders to kind of say, "Oh, you don't need high school basketball no more. Everything goes through
Right.
AAU." But there's a symmetry between the two because the high school coach is going to definitely have a better character reference than the AAU coach. They also going to have a better feel for the kids' academic situation, and they have a bigger tape. They see these
For
guys every
sure.
day practice, and they've been the 20 to 30 ball games over a good extended period of time. Whereas with
Right.
AAU, we play maybe 4 weekends, and you playing with 10 other guys that depending on what program you're in, it's all college level guys. So it's easy to hide your flaws in those games. High school, you
Mm-hmm.
usually have to do a little bit of everything if you're that type of player. So that
Facts.
like I've used for example, me and Coach Partee at Smith High School, we've been working together now for probably like 8 or 9 years. And I think if you go
Mm-hmm.
back and look at Smith's, resume of getting kids in school, there's a huge symmetry between ourselves and Smith High School. But Coach Partee does a great job of coaching his guys up, marketing his kids. We do the same thing if they happen to
Definitely.
play for Team Felton. And so that kid is benefiting from getting both ends met,
Mm-hmm.
so that's a perfect situation for a kid. But a lot of people just want to take credit, and that's the ego side of just the game in general. And I can be honest, like we all get caught up in it. If at
Right.
some point in time in your career, we've all been guilty of it. Because the way the game is set up, whoever has the kids, whoever gets the wins, it gives you a sense of bargaining. It's almost like having a bargaining chip. Oh, this guy can do this for this brand, or we can get this contract. But when you really fall back from it, and really put the kids first, it makes the ride enjoyable for the coaches and the kids. So that's what we always try to really stress. But every high school coach doesn't see it that way, unfortunately, and every AAU coach don't see it that way. So you just try to make the best of every situation, and then you let the parents. I always just ask the parents, how involved do you want me to be? How involved do you want the high school coach to be? And I just kind of follow the parents' wishes. I mean, there's no need to make this situation tougher than what it is, just strictly based off of wanting to be able to take credit for a kid's, recruitment process.
Definitely, man. It's always that one. We had them this year. We had them this, and then the whole AAU free agency. We definitely
Yeah,
gonna touch on that, man. Man, I know it's just it's an ugly world, man. It's a lot of. I think AAU gets a bad rap, but I truly think being around it for a while, there's more good people in it than bad people trying to benefit.
Definitely. And just to speak on the second part of your question too, as far as how these
Yeah,
kids
yeah.
get out of state, the biggest reason I see it is a lot of the in-state coaches aren't originally from North Carolina. So
Okay.
head coaches typically recruit their base. So if you hire a coach that's from Ohio, they typically go back and recruit Ohio.
Makes
They don't
sense.
really spend a strong portion of their recruiting time in the state that they're actually coaching in, because they already have relationships with high school and AAU coaches wherever they're from, or they kind of built their name at. So that plays a big part in it. If you look across the state, a lot of the coaches in the state aren't from North Carolina. So those
Okay.
relationships haven't been made to establish recruiting the AAU program. But to me, not to take shots in it, but I think that's a very irresponsible way to recruit. When you had at one point in time, you had Team Felton, Team Wall, Garner Road, Team
Right.
Charlotte, Team Curry, Team United, CP3. You got all these programs that have top 100 kids every single
Loaded.
year. It doesn't make sense not to recruit in state, and these kids can actually come watch a home game. You can meet the parents, you can go to the high school games. So I don't feel sorry for, that's the answer to your question. I don't feel sorry for anybody getting
Right.
paid to coach basketball after volunteering for 20 years. So, I mean, we have to recruit just like they do. And AAU, you recruit the kids, you want them to come play for you. It's the same thing in college, man. You just have to go out there and do your job. I mean, that's just the end of the day. If you don't want to get fired, you got to get good at your job quick, because having Duke, Carolina, NC State, Wake Forest, programs like A&T and Central, and there's a lot of UNCG. There's a lot of winning programs in the state on all different levels. And your bordering states are crazy too, with Virginia Tech, Virginia, Norfolk State,
Yeah.
Clemson. Like you better bring your best pitch to get these kids, because by playing AAU and it being more national, these kids aren't afraid to go to a Wichita State, because we played AAU tournaments in Kansas. We played AAU tournaments in California. These kids don't care about logistics anymore. It's not 1999 no more. Like, you have to be willing to go say you need to come to school here, and that's just a onus that coaches gonna have to take. I think Keats has tried to do a good job of trying to recruit the state.
Yeah.
To KO has done the same thing at UNC Wilmington and starting to get results. But for North Carolina and Duke, I kind of understand it, because they're blue blood national programs. But even North Carolina has recruited regionally pretty well as far as getting the guys that
Think
fit
so.
what their needs are. So it's just a matter of the approach of the coaching staff. And I think sometimes coaches see the kids so much, they start nitpicking kids' games. And I think in Ricky's case, that's a lot of what happened. People was like, oh, well, he can't shoot it that well. He can't do this. But if you watch Ricky's tapes, like, the kid was scoring 25, 30, 40 points in a dominant fashion for
On
4 years of
anybody.
his life. Everybody. So I think it was just a case of coaches just getting too smart. But like I said, it always works. I always tell kids, God's gonna place you where you need to be, unless you're just being stubborn and denying what He's trying to put on you. So, but sometimes we have to learn the hard way. I mean, unfortunately, kids choose dream schools as opposed to the school that best fits them. But I mean, would you expect the kids 17, 18, 19?
Right.
If I offered you your dream job at 17, you probably take it too, without knowing what's best for you, but you probably would take it. So you can't fault the kids. It's all a process. So if anybody says they got all the answers, they're lying to you. We all try to guide our kids the best we can, and then ultimately the parents and the kid have to make the best decision for them, and hopefully it works out for them like it has for like Ricky, and some of the other guys.
Yeah, he's really been balling out, man. I know you've been doing a great job keeping up with all these guys, and we'll definitely pick your brain about
Mm-hmm.
that, man. I think you touched on something really, really dope, though. With this transfer thing, man, it seems like the kids catch so much hell, but we always say it like a coach can pick up another job and there's no repercussions, man. I just wanted to get your opinion on that, and seeing so many kids coming through the transfer portal, like, how important is it to really take your time, and what questions should parents be asking to really get into these programs and find that right fit?
Man, if I could just give one piece of advice to try to help prevent it, is go to the school that needs you. Like, when I always tell people, Carolina don't really need you, because they can replace you the next year. Duke can replace you
Mm-hmm.
next year. Kentucky can replace. So if you go to one of those schools, you just understand that the room for error is very small. If you have a bad week of games, a bad week of practice, your career is pretty much done at that point. You're gonna be behind so far down on the depth chart, it's gonna be almost impossible to work yourself back in. But if you go to the school that's trying to make their way up in the standings, they're gonna roll with you longer because they need you. But it's a lot of people put the onus on kids and parents and AAU
Right.
coaches and high school coaches. I'll be honest with you, college coaches lie. I mean, a lot of those coaches lie to these kids.
We know.
They walk in
Talk to
the
'em.
living room. Hey, we're gonna give you the ball in your hands day one. You our guy. Don't go to school at this other school that's recruiting you because they lose and that coach gonna get fired. Instead of just saying, hey, this is what we want to do with you, this is how we want to project your career here, this is what we can do for you, and giving the kid the honest assessment so he can give an honest, yeah, I do want to come here or I don't. So many of the college coaches just want to get the commitment, and then it's like we'll figure it out to get here. I mean, it's not doing the kids any justice, and then to go ahead and send it on the PR side. So the kid, you flew every AAU tournament, you texted and called his phone every single day. You in his DMs on Twitter and Instagram, but all of a sudden he's not good enough. It just doesn't add up. So to the parents, credit, like the parents have a lot, especially if it's a kid that's got 20 and 30 offers.
Oh man,
that's a lot of information to process. That they don't want to mess up. Every coach is telling you why not to choose that school. It's a lot of pressure, and a lot of the kids that I find out, they go from wanting to offer to coach, I'm ready to be over with. And usually the coaches that put the most pressure on the kids end up getting the kids to commit. And that's just not a way to make a decision. And I always tell my kids, man, you control your terms of your recruitment. If you're ready to commit, make sure it's because you're ready to commit. Don't let a coach say, well, you got till Monday. If that's the case, then let them, let that offer go. You can't, no decision should be made with the shotgun to you. Like, it just shouldn't be that way. I always tell my kids, and it's hard to tell them that when it's a dream situation. If Kentucky called you and said you got to Monday, but Winthrop is telling you we really want you, it's real easy for a 17-year-old to say, well, I'm going to Kentucky, because the association is, if I go to Kentucky, I'm going to the NBA. But if you look back at all these top major schools, like, they have so many transfers and kids that go elsewhere to go kind of rebound their careers, it's because they have so much pressure as head coaches at those schools to win right away, and they have to recruit the next top 20 kid the next year. So it's just not enough roster spots for everybody to be an NBA prospects. But it's hard to tell kids that with social media having such a large influence on where the kids go.
Man,
the kids like the sudden celebrity of everybody caring where they go to school. There's a lot. That's a lot for these kids to juggle. I mean, I don't. When people bash kids, man, nobody's been through this before. This is the first generation of kids that's had to make these type of life decisions and have this many people in that a part of that process. So it's definitely a flawed system, but I don't blame kids jumping in the transfer portal. The coach, promised you something and didn't give it to you, and you held up your end of the bargain as a player. There's no need for you to waste your time and going there. So I'm actually a fan of the NCAA changing their rule for the immediate transfer, because, like you said, coaches can do it. So I think it's only right for the kids to be able to do it, especially when they only have 4 years to make, maximize their college career in order to hopefully play after college basketball. So I don't blame the kids at all.
Facts, man. Let them play, man. Honestly, Coach, we're gonna take a quick commercial break, but I definitely want to continue with this and pick your brain some more, man. Just going through that transfer process, having to go through the recruitment process again. Getting some advice on how you guys approach that and narrowing a list. We see kids with 20 offers. How are they narrowing this list from 10 to 5? Are they doing it the right way? And we just going to keep you on, Coach. So I appreciate you, and we'll be right back. Y'all stay tuned for all the latest. Okay, quick commercial break, Coach.
All right.
Oh. Okay, so we'll probably go for like another 20, Coach, if that's cool.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Brandon Blakney, aka Brandon Lee TV. Appreciate y'all joining. If you just tuned in, we got Coach Frederick Cannon on. I'm doing a little bit of everything, man. Basketball aficionado, and we just happy to have him, Coach. Before we let you go, or before we left off on the last topic, we were talking about the transfer portal and just how kids don't really have the same opportunity as coaches to make that immediate impact after transferring. It seems like the kids are kind of getting punished. You're seeing it firsthand, dealing with the process. What advice are you giving guys that are picking a school, or picking a school and leaving, going through the transfer process? Are they sure they want to leave? When's it time to cut bait? I know it's a type situation deal, but it seems like once you get a couple schools on your resume, the media and the coaches, it starts to be a bad look.
Correct. It's definitely a case by case situation. A lot of people have called me early in the season. I got phone calls this year, like after the first week of the season started.
Oh, they ain't
In
playing.
those situations, I don't touch those situations because yeah, a lot of those are freshmen. It's the first time in their life that they've never not started or not played the whole game, stuff like that. So I tell those kids and those parents, look, you need to wait till at least February because typically what happens in a college season, a program may have an established player at your position, and they'll wait till they get all the way through non-conference to kind of say, okay, do we just go ahead and start rolling with the next guy to get ready for the future, or can our current people get us over the top? So I tell the
Right.
parents, wait till at least non-conference is over. If you're not playing by the time conference starts, you're not going to play. They're not going to throw a new guy in the mix for conference play. So you'll kind of know where you're at. That usually keeps most people happy. And then some people are just unhappy in general. Like you do run into
Right.
parents and kids who just wanted their way. I don't touch those situations at all, just because you'll never make those type of people happy. But other than that, everybody else, I'll kind of look at their stats. How much video time do you have for another school to look at your synergy and kind of determine whether they like you or not? I tell most kids, if you don't have any game film, you don't have any stats, you weren't heavily recruited in high school, you might need to make a career decision to decide if you put your name in that portal, it doesn't mean you're going to automatically get picked up by somebody. You could put your name in the
Right.
portal and just be stuck. So are you willing to risk that as opposed to getting a free degree? So I tell a lot of my kids, if you call me and say, hey, coach, I'm calling you from Davidson. I was like, look, that Davidson degree means something. So, you talking about $100,000 degree. Are you willing?
Right.
Are you willing to risk that to go to a D2, D3, or NAIA? For me, from a business standpoint, I tell the kids that sounds like a bad business decision for me. But I understand as a kid you have dreams, but you have to start thinking as a grown man too. You're 20 or 21. Everybody's not going to the NBA, and everybody's not going overseas to play. And some of the guys that are going overseas is making $500-$600 a month. It's not like they're
Some of
getting
them
rich
paying to
over there.
play.
So by the time I break Correct. So by the time I break that down to them, a lot of the kids be like, well, coach, I'm going to stick it out. But for the high major guys, the high profile guys that, every school in the country wants just based off of their game or what they remember in high school, those guys, usually they go for the fluff or the glitter on the first go round. They looking at the shoes and all that stuff. By the time they're
Yeah.
ready to transfer, they understand the process a lot better. I'm looking for coaches that I'm actually paying attention to the style of play. And I use Javon Quinterly as a perfect example. He was at Villanova, not getting any playing time, goes to Alabama, and now Alabama's rolling, but the system fits him. That was a situation where the school needs you, the coach
Yeah.
plays you, and then you can produce. A lot of these kids can play. It's not a fluke that these kids are who they are over these 4 years. But if you go to the wrong system, anybody can look bad. So by the time they get that transfer portal, these kids know specifically what they're looking for. For a lot of these kids, it's the first time they started watching college basketball. A lot of these top players are right here. They don't watch college basketball. They might know who the
Absolutely.
top teams are for that year. They couldn't tell you who the coach is, what they run, what city the school in. They don't care about any of that. All they know is this is the hot team and this is where I want to go to school at for right now.
Facts.
But by the time they go to school and start getting in the mix and realize how much work it is, they understand that you can't go waste your time. So usually the kids are pretty thoughtful and kind of where they want to go on that second go round. But my advice up front is just weighing out the prestige of the degree, the city that you're in, how easy it's going to be to find work after your 4 years of school. because I
Absolutely.
tell kids, like, you got to be cognitive of where you're at, because if you transfer to a school that's a very small market, I don't care what degree it is, you're gonna have a hard time finding a job if there's not a lot
Right.
of job opportunities in the city that your university is in. So I just try to talk to them about that. And then with the immediate transfer rule, a lot of these kids aren't going to graduate because they're going to lose credits when they transfer schools, and they no longer have that 1 year in between to make up those credits. So you're
Okay.
gonna go in right away to play, and you're gonna lose some of these schools. You go from private to public, you could
Hmm.
lose 20 credit hours, 30 credit hours, and then you behind a
Ooh.
semester. You could graduate and you still don't have your college degree. So I just try to put all that information on the table for these kids and these parents. You got to decide how unhappy you are, because you could be risking your college degree with this transfer. So, on the table. And then, like I said, at that point in time, I work for the kid and the parents. So they want to move
Mhm.
forward. I do my best to land them in a situation that's going to foster them playing time on the court or better opportunities on the court. And of course, hopefully the academics line up as well.
What is that biggest shell shock moment you think just speaking with players that guys really don't realize when they move to the next level, whether it be D1, D2, D3 basketball, or just athletics in general, when they move to be a full-time collegiate athlete and they don't realize that thing is a job up there?
Yeah, conditioning. Oh man, conditioning. Every kid I had, because I always tell the kids, like, you need to start running today. I always tell them, like, you need to
Right.
start running today. The kids are like, no, coach, I'm good. They're not good. That first week, I get so many phone calls about how crazy the strength and conditioning coach is, and the fact that they have to do all of this every single day. They've
Hmm.
never been held accountable for 24 hours every single day. I think
Right.
kids see college and they thinking, oh man, we're gonna party, we're gonna be the
Oh
big guy.
yeah.
Y'all, the athletes don't have time to do all that. Like, you hope to get some of that in, but if you serious about what
Hmm.
you're doing, you waking up at 5:30 every morning, and kids ain't getting home till like 10:30. Like, you had a full
Easy.
day and every minute's accounted for. The kids aren't used to that. Their bodies break down because they've been eating McDonald's and playing all the time. Now you in a situation where you're playing against ACC talent and NBA
Hmm.
talent. You got to take care of yourself. You have to get sleep. You still have to do your work. So balancing all that is the struggle, but conditioning, that's the main thing. The first 2 weeks, I always just wait for my phone to ring, because those kids, man, they are hurting after the first 2 weeks.
Hey man, you can't tell them, they just got to experience it for themselves.
That's it. That's it. And I don't care what level it is. A lot of kids think, man, I'm going to transfer down. I don't care if you go down to NAI, they still going to work you the same. So you have to work on that body. So I tell all high school kids, man, get in that weight room. I tell all my local kids, I trust A-Wall Fitness a lot. They did wonders
Okay.
for my man Jordan Perkins. That's at North Carolina Central. He
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
transformed his body. They know what they're doing, but I tell the kids it's worth it. Instead of investing in Jordans all the time or the new sneakers, put that money into your body, and it can
Right.
change your career. It can provide longevity to your career. But a lot of kids, they just think they're good enough because they were able to dominate in high school with their current frame. But when you go to college, man, you think there's grown men. Uh, it's a big difference between an 18, 19-year-old and a 23-year-old. It's a huge difference. And I'd rather kids
Yeah.
be overly prepared than to be underprepared. It's hard to play catch up once you get to college, because those guys ain't gonna let their foot off your neck, because even though they on your team, I want those minutes too. And if I can beat you out, I'm gonna beat you out every single day. And it's a struggle for most kids, but college is not meant to be easy. Even for regular students, college isn't easy to manage. So for the athlete, you getting your school paid
Mhm.
for. Again, I don't feel sorry for you. This is the life you chose.
Right.
This is what you said your dream was. You just gotta go get the job done. Nobody's gonna feel sorry for you.
Coach, man, that was an excellent, I think, example. Jordan, man, honestly, he completely, if you saw him 3 years ago, 4 years ago at Greensboro, they, like you said, completely transformed his body. A kid that went on, found somewhere where
Hmm.
they really wanted him to succeed. And, he's a kid that's played on the big stages against everybody, played in Geico, the national tournament. One of the guys that came through the Team Felton
Right.
program. And that's where I wanted to transition
That's
to,
right.
man. I know seeing you guys build that program was dope. I just wanted to kind of start from the roots a little bit. What went into building it, establishing it, having Raymond Felton's name up there, and then running a shoe company team. Everybody aspires to be that every mom and pop
Yeah.
team trying to get that shoe sponsor, and some of them lying about it.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, they are. Man, it's the beginning started. I was coaching JV basketball over at Western Guilford High School, and Art Wade was the varsity coach at the time, and he's currently the athletic director with Dudley High School now. But he was already coaching the Greensboro Gators team, and had Harry Giles, and Mike Buckland, and Jamie Newman, and all those guys are already currently on his team.
Okay.
Uh, but Coach Wade was new to the AAU world, so he asked me if I would come on board and help him. In that process, we played against Jalek's Felton's team out of Charlotte and beat them pretty bad. And Raymond had just gotten drafted by the Bobcats at the time, and asked how he could get Jalek with Harry. And that's kind of where
Right.
everything started at.
Oh.
And we started off with one team, and that was fifth or sixth grade those kids were in. So that initial team, we had Jalen Seegers, Ty Graves, Jalek Felton, Mike Buckland, Jamie Newman, Jeremiah Brown that played wide receiver at Wake Forest,
Hmm.
Sim Gatlin that went on to play football at Carolina and Morgan State. Like we had a Jalen Gore that's at Guilford College.
Oh
We
yeah.
had a very good team as a startup team. And I'm sorry if I left some kids off, but getting
It
old.
was a while ago. I understand.
But we put that team together, and the team. I mean, they played very well together from day one. So we kept that team together. Fifth, sixth, and seventh grade was the last year with that core group together. Eventually, Harry switched over to CP3, and at that time, Coach Wade left to go to CP3 with Harry and Mike Buckland and Jalen Gore and a couple other kids. At the time, I just asked Raymond if he was wanting to keep it going. I would love the opportunity to run it, and
Right.
he told me, he trusted me to run it. So I expanded the program from one team to three teams immediately, and I brought on. It used to be Brandon Haywood Elite.
Mm.
Uh, he was sponsoring a team out of Greensboro, and that's why I met Coach Waddell. And that team had Jordan Perkins and Will Dillard and a couple other kids on that team, Jalen Spicer. We brought them under the fold, added some kids in the program like John Newman, BJ Mack,
Hmm.
Nicholas Eptimov. Some of those kids came into the program,
Oh yeah.
and we started rolling from there. We started to make noise pretty much immediately. But I told my coaches and my parents the biggest thing for me is I've always been built on development. I'm not
Hmm.
gonna cut a kid because he's not good in sixth, seventh, eighth grade. Like we need to figure this out, and then ninth grade is when we'll start trimming the fat if a kid is not good enough. And man,
Oh
my
yeah.
kids responded right away. And my main focus was playing showcase events as early as we could. So my seventh and eighth grade teams that year, my seventh grade team that had Jordan Perkins on it, they finished number 5 in the country that year. We went out to
Nice.
Vegas before most people was going to Vegas that year, and we finished in fourth. We lost to Chauncey Billups Elite in overtime, and that was the first time people really saw young teams start going to showcase events. And that next year we did the same thing, but we added Sasha Kalea Jones and ended up going to Kentucky and now playing ball overseas. We added him to the
Yeah.
mix. I had Andre Griffin. Started adding some big time players to the program.
I see
We went
that,
back to
man.
Vegas again. Yeah, we were under Adidas at the time, and we went back to the Adidas 64 again. We finished fourth again. We lost to Chauncey Billups Elite again in the fourth place game. And I had
Now
kids like
let me
Darian
stop real
Slade and
quick,
Daryl
Coach.
Brown and all those guys.
Quick question for you. Now, as far as like because I know
Yeah.
it's so different now with the layout. Were you seeing as many shoe companies involved at that point? Like, was the frenzy there? Was it already that crazy?
Yeah. Yeah, it was at its peak at that time because Adidas was rolling at that time. Like they had, to me, it was the top of the top, and it was on Adidas. Nike would have like the top maybe three or four, five guys, but
Hmm.
I think from top to bottom, Adidas was the deepest at the time, and was spending. I think they probably was spending the most money on grassroots at the time. But it's still you could still play like Kevin Grace at the Carolina Diamonds at the time, which was an independent team, but
Okay.
clearly was one of the best teams in the country. So it
Right.
hadn't switched over yet to where you had to be playing for a shoe sponsor
Okay.
team. But that ninth grade year, that 2016 class is when it really just switched over. And that's when you saw a lot of like the Carolina Diamonds kids end up going split up, going their separate ways to shoe sponsor teams. Because when they started providing, Under Armour came on the scene with a circuit at that point in time. Adidas expanded theirs, and then Nike expanded theirs. So it was more teams getting involved. So it just changed the whole landscape of everything that was going on. And at that time, we had Jalek and Sasha and a couple other kids that were trending up. So we were given a 1-year deal on Under Armour at the time to kind of prove ourselves. And to be honest, we probably would have stayed with Adidas, but what happened was Raymond signed. He left Adidas and went to Under Armour. So that was going to be a conflict of interest if his AAU program was one shoe team and he was signed to another. So Under Armour already had Team Charlotte in North Carolina and really didn't want two North Carolina teams. But Jalek was ranked like top 10 in the country at the time. So it was one of those things like they wanted this kid, but let's see how they do. We went out and did well that year. Jalek and Sasha ended up jumping into the top 100 between that 9th and 10th grade year. Eventually, Sasha ended up being like number 22 in the McDonald's All-American. Of course, Jalek was Jordan Brand Classic in Carolina. But every kid went to school off our initial team, and all our teams all the way up to 2020. Every kid went to college on scholarships. So it's been a blessing. If you had I would be lying if I said that was going to happen. I knew that was going to happen. But that was the goal. The goal was to maximize every kid's opportunity to go to school, whether it was football, basketball, baseball, whatever. I just wanted to make sure kids went to school, and I wanted them to have a great experience when we traveled to these cool places. So we put a lot of focus and a lot of emphasis on making sure these kids didn't just go out of town and play ball. We tried to make sure they had a story to tell when they came home. We spent a lot of time with the kids, just kind of goofing around and getting to really know the kids. So, man, I don't regret any part of my experience. From Jalek and Sasha and those guys to Joey Baker and Greg Gant, Adise Tony and Ricky Council. Like we've had some phenomenal kids come through the program. And a lot of these kids weren't kids that you saw in 6th grade and said, oh, he's going to be top 100 good. These were kids that developed, took the long route, but once they hit it, they maximized their situations to put themselves in a situation to get this college paid for. And we got football kids like Jamie Newman that'll be in the draft this year. We got a kid, DJ Hurts, that got drafted by Chicago Cubs. So I mean, just seeing these kids go from these little boys, man, and seeing these kids, now pursuing professional careers or about to graduate college, or we got kids with families now. That's what it's all about. It's kind of putting it all together. And my whole thing was with Team Felton. I wanted to prove that you could put a program together without cheating. I never cut a kid that once we had them. I told the kids that if you play for me and I put you on a team in 9th grade, if you don't get a college scholarship, it's my fault. And I wanted the kids to understand that I was going to work hard for them to make sure that they were seen. All I needed them to do was produce when the coaches came to see them play. And we laid that guideline out with the kids as soon as 8th grade. We had them write down 5 dream schools and then 5 schools that touched our state that wasn't a Power 5 conference that they would go to.
Okay.
And I would get every kid feedback from schools on their list. And the reason why I did that was, Brandon, you might think you wanted to go to Duke. Well, I would send your film over to somebody at Duke and they would say, Coach, he's not good enough. And I would show you the text. So it wasn't Fred hating on you. This is the words of a college coach saying that you're not good enough. So now you can start concentrating on Gardner-Webb or A&T or Central, these schools that really want you. You can go ahead and concentrate on your recruitment and not stop hoping for this dream situation to come about. And we started doing that. And I told the kids we weren't going to be selfish in the process. I wasn't afraid to lose games in order to help kids get recruited. So a kid like Joey Baker, I could have let Joey play this age group his whole life, but he played 17 and under from 9th grade and up because he needed that. At 6'6", 6'7", he could have dominated 9th and 10th grade just off of size. But Joey dominated on 17s at 9th grade. We finished 3rd in the country that year with Cam Lately, Jordan Perkins, Jalek, Aaron Bennett. And Joey was a freshman averaging like 14, 15 points a game on that team. I think if kids are really high major, they can do it at 9th and 10th grade. I think you have to be that talented. And that's including kids like Jalen Cone, who people said was too little, Bryson Childers, who is High Point University, they said was too little. These kids can play. Like that body of work these kids put up, there's no fluke in that body of work that these kids have. But my main thing was just sticking by these kids, and wherever it took us, we would all accept responsibility for it. And I always tell the kids, I think, when we had trials and stuff, I always told people that we'll keep the kids I think God wants us to have. And that might not be the kid that's the sexy kid in there. You see the 6'10" kid coming in. A lot of times, by the time I gave my speech to the parents about what I expected out of them, we would lose those kids because I'm not giving Brandon a pair of shoes that Fred don't get.
Right.
I'm not treating you any different. You're not flying first class, and this kid's not. This kid's mom's not traveling. If your mom's not traveling, we kept it all the same because I wanted the kids to understand that if we all in this together, then we have to support each other one way or the other. Like that's the way it
Absolutely.
works. And then if you do what you're supposed to do on that platform, you might get McDonald's All American. You might get Jordan Brand. Those are initiatives that you can shoot for on your own. That doesn't hinder the team. But I'm not
Right.
going to do it. I'm not going to treat you different over no AAU basketball. We're not doing that. And my kids bought into it, and we built a real strong legacy on that with all the kids going to school. But like you said, with the shoe deals, it's a necessary evil because the college coaches have limited weekends to watch these
Right.
kids play. And if I can go to UA, Adidas, or Under Armour and see the top, supposedly the top 30 teams on each circuit, I can go see a lot of kids. So it makes it hard on the mom and pop teams because it's like a needle in a haystack for these coaches to bounce around and see one team get smoked by 50 and then go watch this
Right.
team. You really can't get a gauge on the kid. And the fact that they would pay for us to go, it allowed us to have a lot of opportunities. And we were doubly blessed because
Yeah.
Raymond definitely took care of the program financially. But I told Raymond up front, I wanted to make sure that he didn't have to spend his money on this program if he gave me an opportunity. And we were able to self-sustain our program after the first year of Raymond sponsoring us. So he
See,
still
that's
gave, but
amazing, man. Because I think when people see
yeah,
those NBA names next to it, they think like, "Oh, this guy's just hey, here's $5 million, y'all. Do y'all AU coaches
yeah.
getting rich, throwing money."
Even there's probably some that are like that. But I've always been big on. I just appreciated the opportunity. He didn't have to let me run this program. I didn't have any type of relationship with Raymond before all this started, so I was just grateful for the opportunity. And I want him to make sure that he knew that I wasn't trying to leech off of him. None of my coaches were. We weren't going to treat these kids bad. So my OG Reggie Perkins, he's been by my side the whole time. Like we've made sure we kept over every dollar, every receipt, everything for the whole time we've been here at Team Felton, and we turned it into Raymond every year, and he would look at us crazy, like, "Why are you still doing this?" But I just always believe in, especially if you using somebody's name. I
Right.
always want to make sure we keep that name intact, and I want our trust to be able to be there. So, because a lot of people mistreat these NBA players for that reason. Oh, he got it. You don't have to use the situation and understanding these shoe deals. If you perform and market your kids the right way, they'll take care of your program to make sure they don't lose it because their shoe company wants to take credit for those kids, just like we was talking about those
Right.
other adults in the beginning.
Yep.
So we've always made sure that we had those kids, but we never compromised ourselves to get those kids. So it's been like I said, it was an incredible journey. But I tell all the mom and pop teams if you're really seeking to get that sponsorship. You're gonna have to go out and play the teams that have it. You're gonna have to go play CP3, Team United, Team Wall, whoever those teams are, and you're gonna have to beat those guys consistently. But the difference in that process is their kids might not be paying to play. You have to get
Right.
kids to pay for you to get to that destination, and they're gonna have to show up and play and win those games. And you're gonna have to make sure that you maintain your good kids from those
Right.
teams after you playing. So
I was about to say.
because
Right.
what people don't understand is Nike, instead of them starting a whole new sponsorship, we'll just help CP3 get your kid, or we'll just help Team United get your kid. We don't need your whole team. We'll just get this one player. So there's a lot of, yeah. It's when you behind the scenes and you go to these shoe circuit meetings and stuff, man. Like it's a lot of shady business that goes on as far as like how they approach the mindset, how they plan to poach kids, or we want to just give you this kid, or Fred, we want you to cut this kid, we're gonna give you this kid. I'm not complying with any of that. I'm never gonna get rid of one of my kids that trusted me with their dreams and goals for some kid that you're gonna place on my team. And you'll take flack from people on that sometimes.
I
But the
bet.
whole thing is you better win when you do that. But for me, I was willing to risk that. I'm not going to. I always used to tell my kids, I'm not. I used to always before the FBI stuff started. I used to always tell the kids, I'm not getting in trouble with grassroots basketball, and I'm not
Right.
selling my soul for no grassroots basketball because I got two sons at home, and we just not going to do business that way. And that's guys who do. It's to each his own. 'Cause the game is like that. I mean, college
Oh
basketball is
yeah.
a direct reflection of grassroots basketball.
Hmm.
You have some programs that do it different ways, and the results are all different. But you get to set the line in the sand for yourself, and I just try to make sure that we set our line in the sand clear enough that people understood where we was coming from, and it worked out well for us. And like I said, at the time that we ended it, I think it was time like the torch. I couldn't be as actively involved as I wanted to anymore because I got to focus my attention on my family. And I
Hmm.
started my own other company, that's my primary job that requires me to travel a ton. So I didn't want to have kids in the program and I'd never be able to show them the same attention that, I've shown all the teams in the past. So to give those kids a fair shake, man, it was just time to kind of move on to the next phase.
Coach, man, it must be a dope feeling being able to walk away from everything, clear conscience, full heart, feeling good about it, man. I appreciate you hopping on and sharing this knowledge, not just for me, but for all the people that are watching. We got a lot of kids that are watching, parents that have never went through this process before. And I know you're doing some big things with a lot of college parents and high school parents. So let them know where they can follow you and subscribe to your podcast and all that good stuff.
Yeah, check out the podcast if parents want to know information on all this recruiting and what's going on with college basketball. I try to keep everybody updated. If you go subscribe to the Ascension Sports Podcast, you can find it on all the major platforms, Google, iTunes, the whole 9 yards. So that's Ascension Sports Podcast. You can follow our page on Instagram at Ascension Sports. Same on Twitter, Facebook, and you can follow myself, Frederick Cannon, or Coach Cannon on all social media. But I always tell parents if you have questions, definitely reach out. I don't, you don't have to be a former Team Felton kid or anything like that. If you got a question, definitely reach out, and I'll definitely try to get back to you. With COVID, I ain't got nothing but time on my hands anyway right now, so it's a good time to catch me. And if it ends up being something that you need assistance with, then we can try to arrange that. But in the meantime, like definitely reach out because my main thing is with kids right now. COVID is messing things up for a lot of kids on their recruitment and stuff like that, man. It's
Most
it's hard out here. So if I can help in any way to help get some information for some kids, some parents, definitely feel free to reach out.
Hey, y'all heard it. Make sure to go give my guy a follow, man. Get that information. It's free. That's free game. So make sure to go pick that up,
Yeah.
subscribe, and y'all make sure to keep supporting us and subscribe for all the latest. That's it. For all the latest and the greatest, man. Y'all subscribe to Live with Brandon Blakney. You dig?